How's it going, boys? And I know what you're thinking. Absolutely luscious. Perfection at its finest. And 100% not homosexual. And stop commenting about that. Jeez, like seriously, why can't you stop commenting these things nonstop? But in any case, today, Wizards of the Coast is doing something remarkably stupid. Honestly, Wizards of the Coast in general is a company that has done everything wrong for the past at least 5+ years at this point, and I'm being serious. They barely do anything right. The things that they do right are pretty much always on accident or very minor. This company is trying its hardest to run everything into the ground, and currently, they are making one of the most insane decisions that they can. I mean, seriously, Wizards of the Coast is like the most mismanaged, poorly led company in maybe all of history. I don't even understand how it's honestly not collapsing at this point and there's no visible signs of it going bankrupt. Because these people are beyond stupid. Let's check.
Corrine Bush has been hired by Wizards of the Coast, or at least a subsidiary company that's owned by them called Skeleton Key. And when you start diving into the backgrounds of the people hiring this dude, you see how the nepotism is actually just as much of a problem in the game industry as diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's going on?
So, for those of you who do not understand, let me give you the too long didn't read version of all of these things. Karine Bush, the person right here, is the person that made Dragon Age Railgod, aka made a game that literally sells tens of millions of copies into a game that sells barely 1 million copies. And if that's not bad enough, it's barely a game. It's barely a game. It is extremely repetitive, extremely boring, and the story is literally a self-insert for the most part, and a completely full-blown political message. And yes, this person now is effectively given what is kind of 100% control over what is Skeleton Key. Skeleton Key is a new subsidiary of Wizards of the Coast, where Green Bush is going to be literally the single person in power of making all the decisions. And the last time, when this person was 90% just in power of making all of decisions, well, they completely wrecked the goddamn franchise that sold into the tens of millions. And this is a completely new studio formed from Wizards of the Coast because they for some reason want to go into gaming, which is the dumbest thing ever. Because you know what happened the last time when Wizards of the Coast tried to go into gaming? And spoiler alert, it's not actually Arena. Let me share with you something, okay? I'm gonna share the screen. I'm gonna refresh your memory. Some of you are gonna be able to tell what this is. And voila, here it is. This is called Magic Legends. This was supposed to be a top-down ARPG style of game where you combine elements, you know, the classic white, blue, black, red, and green, and then you kill things in some kind of world. Let me just give you a quick rundown how this game was. It was horrible. It was barely playable, and I'm not even kidding. And Wizards of the Coast thought that they're like sitting on a gold mine here. Okay, I mean, look at this. Look at this right here. This is what represents the game. Okay, so we have the white color mana represented by a black holy dude. I can't even understand at this point. Are they picking a black holy dude to represent white mana because of the racial stereotypes of blacks being religious at this point, or just because they think that blacks should be holy, which is another lane of stupidity. Blue is represented by a gay twink, obviously. Black is represented by the only white dude, and he's an absolute spastic loser. Red is obviously represented by a black woman, and green is also obviously represented by a black woman. Okay? This game happened something like 4 years ago, plus, I think. And it was horrible. People absolutely hated it. It was shit. let me tell you about this Necromancer, for example. This game was so bad that they messed up basic auto attacking. The Necromancer attacked like this. It spazzed out, it barely functioned, okay? This is how bad of a game we are talking about. And Wizards of the Coast spent millions on that, obviously. And, first of all, they actually spent probably more on sponsorship because everyone on Twitch was streaming that game at that time. And everyone was barely able to actually slog through it because everyone hated it. And that game shut down in roughly, I think, 2 weeks or something. It was dead in literally less than 24 hours. So this is how good Wizards of the Coast are in doing ventures in gaming. And now they are doing ventures in gaming again, led by probably the least qualified Nepo loser that has ever existed. Yeah, and you're wondering why, Magic the Gathering is kind of tanking and bad decisions are making. Boys, listen, Black Aragorn was just the start. Orcs being black was just the start, okay? We're heading into an iceberg, probably of colossal proportions at this rate, because Wizards of the Coast are not giving in.
Key. And when you start diving into the backgrounds of the people hiring this dude...
Yes, and yeah, this is a real screenshot. These are legitimate people. Error. Pain. Percentiles. If you know, you know.
You see how the nepotism is actually just as much of a problem in the game industry as diversity, equity, and inclusion. What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of Smash JT.
Yes, effectively, this is just one more Wizards of the Coast full-blown DEI project, okay? I don't remember when we last talked about D&D, but D&D is pretty much fucked at this point. They are removing all the old creators, and again, it's all Wizards of the Coast doing this. Like, they are trying to speedrun syncing their properties so hard it's not even funny. Again, orcs are Mexicans now, hobgoblins are blacks, and God knows what else is happening. They literally banned a beholder because a giant red floating head with eye stalks was black, and I'm not even making this up. It was considered black for some reason. I don't know. I don't even know how that's possible. Okay, this is the level of insanity we're talking about. Wizards of the Coast is fucked. You wonder why Arena is fucked? Well, I mean, have you not been paying attention to what Wizards of the Coast do? I'm surprised their stock. The stock is a different story, by the way. I own their stock because I honestly, personally, kind of think it's criminally underrated, considering these motherfuckers are trying to tank it on every single day, or they try to think about it. Oh, I can't.
Now, apparently a rumor got started late last night, very early in the AMs, spreading from a channel called Diversity and Dragons, which doesn't typically cover the game industry, but in their video they stated that this was something that was a rumor that they had heard from an insider, but were not able to confirm it.
Breaking news, it's actually not news, it's more of a rumor. So I'm going to give the official Doomcock disclaimer. This is a rumor. Take it with a grain of salt, etc., etc. I think I've told many of you that I have a couple of sources inside Wizards of the Coast. And one of them reached out to me and said, hey, you may want to hear this. This is this current scuttlebutt. And it involves kind of a crossover with video games. Corinne Bush.
As much as I understand, by the way, this is 100% confirmed also at this point, sadly. Because of, screenshots of things.
This is their Blue Sky social account. As you can tell, Corinne is a man baby who's LARPing at being a woman. Why do we bring Corinne up? Because Corinne was given the game director title for Dragon Age Veilguard, which means...
By the way, like look at this. The Sims 3. Designer, game designer. Like, there's literally nothing that should put you as a game director. Nothing. There's not a single qualification here that makes you even remotely qualified to be a game director, most likely. Now, granted, obviously, as you don't need these kinds of qualifications, you just need to show that you are capable of doing it inside your job. But still, this jump is not a small gap. This is like an ocean.
That the responsibility for the catastrophe fell on his shoulders. And you wonder how he even got such a plush job with only really one game designer credit before. May have had something to do with identity and representation,
Yeah.
perhaps. But the
Perhaps, said no one. Yes, said everyone.
fallout from the Dragon Age Veilguard catastrophe is only now being felt.
Fast forward to this morning, I opened.
By the way, a fun fact. I covered this on the other channel. All of these people who got let go from Dragon Age Veilguard's disaster, again, turning tens of millions of sales into barely 1 million sales. Okay? That's impressively bad. It's a disaster. It's a disaster that most likely was in the range of costing 350 million. Just 350 million down the drain, lost without any chance of recuperation. A studio that's already fucking suffering. Not a big deal. And all these people, after killing a studio, literally are already rehired in other studios. Magic the Gathering, other writers are going the Ghost of Yotai, whatever, that shit. It's insane. The whole games industry at this point, and Wizards almost is leading the charge, honestly, is just completely concentrated on just DEI and wokeness instead of actually producing games. Sad.
Is only now being felt.
Fast forward to this morning, I open up my email and I have a new whistleblower that's like, hey, Smash, I watch your content and I saw you talking about Corinne Bush, and yeah, that person that nobody wants working with them is working with them. Hit that subscribe, give me a like, and check out SmashJT.com for the full article breaking down how I had an insider from Wizards of the Coast reach out to me and tell me that, yeah, Corinne Bush has been hired by Skeleton Key Studio, and not many people are very happy about it. In a move that will no doubt raise eyebrows throughout the entire gaming community, I've been tipped off by an insider that Wizards of the Coast has quietly hired Corinne Bush, the failed director from Dragon Age the Veilguard and BioWare, leaving that company crumbling by the wayside, to now go work at a newly formed studio called Skeleton Key. This newly formed studio came together at around 2022 and has not put out any games yet officially. According to my anonymous...
Honestly, best case scenario, which is probably not going to happen knowing Wizards of the Coast, is they make a complete pile of garbage that I make fun of and everyone else makes fun of, and they don't release it. Best case scenario, at least they save face. But knowing Wizards of the Coast is they're going to probably release it, lose a bunch of money, and then after try to recuperate losses with abusing Magic the Gathering as much as they can. That's pretty much it. That's my prediction.
Anonymous source inside of Wizards of the Coast, Bush's hiring wasn't announced publicly, but my exclusive source said specifically, and I quote, I just heard a rumor that Corinne Bush had been hired by Skeleton Key, but sure enough, I checked my team's org chart and he's there. And they followed that up with another quote that I'm not going to show all of it because it may give away who they are, but I'll show the second part saying, but I'm not pleased about this turn of events. So right now we already showed that there's internal strife going on at Wizards of the Coast for hiring this extremely controversial figure.
There's no actual real strife. You can't stop it. No one can stop it. No one can say anything that's going to change the trajectory of what Wizards is doing here. And again, some of you may think, what does this have to do with Magic? They literally are sabotaging a completely new studio in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. You fucking think this is not going to affect Magic? I mean, you literally got Black Aragorn already. They fucked up Lord of the Rings already, okay? They are gonna do things. They are gonna destroy things, okay? Because when you do something as insane as make a studio based on these things, that means that everything is infected. Because Wizards of the Coast creating just creating a daughter company like that, it needs approval from the highest echelons at Wizards of the Coast. The board, the fucking everything. They need approval from everyone big involved in this. And everyone thought that, yeah, this is a great idea, let's go for it. So, yeah, this is spelling disaster for Magic the Gathering by proxy. And it's not even too far off a proxy. It's like adjacent.
And when you start diving into the background of, oh, Corinne Bush used to work at BioWare alongside, guess who? The head of Skeleton Key Studio, along with, guess what? Other people from BioWare.
Oh, I did not know that. This is new. So it gets first. It gets first. Fuck me.
Have gone to work at Skeleton Key. And then you see images being shared by the leads over at Skeleton Key, and it all just makes sense. So Corinne Bush was instead quietly discovered by my source instead of being announced publicly. Now, after this news comes out, I'm sure they'll be making a public statement to announce it, to try to paint this in a great light, like, oh, what a big, great thing it is. But we all know what really is happening behind the scenes. For those unfamiliar who Bush is, a biological man who identifies as transgender, I want to give a quick refresher. He was one of the key figures of Dragon Age the Veilguard, and the failure that
I'm non-binary, by the way.
game had.
Because non-binary doesn't have to do anything. You just get to announce to everyone that you're non-binary, and then you get applauded. And you literally don't have to change anything about your life, about anything. And it's done. It's great. I love being non-binary.
Was heavily criticized for pushing extreme gender ideology and woke politics at the expense of.
This is called, by the way, pulling a barb. And this lovely elf woman that you see is literally my cum dumpster, and I do not want to hear anyone say anything bad about her, because I love her. We're gonna have babies, and I know that she maybe she's mentally deficient in literally every way, but that's good enough.
Any kind of quality storytelling.
God, look at that. Those hips were made for breeding. That face was made for kissing. It is what it is, boys. It is what it is, okay? So put me in a coma because I deserve this.
In gameplay, his approach alienated longtime fans of Dragon Age series who felt like the game was far more concerned with forced representation than delivering any kind of RPG fantasy experience that so many gamers had come to love.
Look at that small little teensy nose. Oh, those knife ears. 10 out. Oh, I'm just a man and I have weaknesses.
Over the previous titles in the series. And it's something that people are very frustrated about. They want these people to be held accountable for ruining their games and potentially burning their studios to the ground. But what we're seeing right now is the complete opposite. Somebody who is failing upward. And while Skeleton Key Studio has not put out any games yet, many people are pointing to the announced game coming out of Skeleton Key and Archetype Entertainment called Exodus. Archetype.
Oh, I forgot about this. So this is also something that I actually have covered. So this game is backed by Wizards of the Coast, which, by the way, instantaneously killed all of my hype for it. It didn't seem that bad. This is like a spiritualistic Mass Effect 5 succession, but I mean, you have to play Spot the White Guy in this classic trailer. It is what it is. But yeah, this is probably also gonna be a disaster because not a single lick of anything makes sense in this game.
Type Entertainment has a lot of veterans that came from BioWare and even Bungie. Those people that worked on Baldur's Gate, Knights of the Old Republic, Dragon Age Origins, and even Mass Effect, all coming together to work on Exodus. And there were a ton of gamers excited for this title in particular when it was first announced. Now that Corinne Bush is headed over to Skeleton Key, it's going to make people question any kind of excitement.
You're killing a wild animal is fine. Killing a bear that's enslaved by someone is not fine.
They had for this game, if he is the one that will be the game director on it. Because in the screenshot that got sent to me by my insider, it states Corinne Bush, game director. So I'm making the leap that I'm assuming it's on Exodus, or it could be an unannounced title that nobody knows about yet. But
it's most likely an unannounced title because this is, well, it could be on Exodus. There is a chance, but chances are it's some kind of D&D property because, I mean, Baldur's Gate 3 happened and it was a huge success, so Wizards of the Coast are stupid enough to probably think that they can just, do that.
Regardless of what game he ends up working on, it's going to make everyone look at this studio a lot closer. The backlash against the Veilguard was swift and quite overwhelming. Electronic Arts reported during their quarterly earnings call that the game came up about 50% short of their sales expectations.
And those sales expectations, I don't even believe. I think that lies. The fact that you're somehow managing a franchise that sells 10 million copies, and now you sell 1 million copies, and you're like, oh, well, we're a little bit short. Well, the game most likely at the bare minimum costed 300 million. Minimum, by the way, here. Because again, the Dragon Age Railguard was supposed to be BioWare's return to form. Return to form, indeed. So they probably had to put in a lot there. So, yeah. 1 million copies sold. Most likely 300 million. Minimum budget. That's not even probably counting advertisement and all of that shit in this case. And there you go. Which EA handled, and EA owns BioWare, so it's a little bit different. But who cares? They're fucked.
And gamers outright rejected its pandering tone and cartoonish aesthetics. It marked one of the most embarrassing reveals in BioWare's history, and recently. That's saying something. You go through Anthem, Mass Effect Andromeda, and now Dragon Age the Veilguard, alongside potential canceled titles that never came out, and how many times they redid the Veilguard. It's like, how many times could BioWare fail before they close the studio? And then you turn to the people that are causing it to
not many.
Fail, and you see that they're jumping ship before the ship goes down to destroy them somewhere else. Bush's hiring at Skeleton Key seems to have been deliberately kept under wraps, most likely to avoid backlash from the gaming community, and that would be my best assumption here, hoping that any memory of him would just fade away into the abyss. And Wizards of the Coast is no stranger to controversy, as its mishandling of Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering over the past few years have already put them in hot water with a lot of longtime fans of those series. Now with Bush on board, it looks as though they're doubling down on the same identity-driven political approach that's been rejected time and time again by gamers, yet here they are, doubling down, some could say even tripling down on it, saying, yeah, we don't care what you want and what you don't want. We're going to feed you the slop, and you're going to take it. And as I was referencing earlier.
Yep. That's a pretty good summarization, honestly.
Nepotism in gaming is a major issue these days, and with DEI being under such a microscope of so many gamers, it's taken on a life of its own. Upon further research, Skeleton Key is led by the former BioWare Austin boss, Christian Daly, who has described its first project as a AAA title focused on immersive gameplay and unique storytelling.
Wait a minute, this does not... Wait, where is the thing? Because he... Oh, no, okay, so this does make sense. Previously, I thought that there's no one really higher than her, but so he gets to gets to put his finalization stamp on. Okay, still doesn't make too much of difference. He's probably the guy who just has to respond to Wizards of the Coast, because Skeleton Key is gonna have to respond to they have to give their summaries, they have to give their statements, they have to give their mission reports, and all of the things that they do to Wizards of the Coast. So he's just there to do the stamp, as much as I understand from the job description names. Where are they, by the way? Because we saw this. Tristan Daly, VP. Oh, VP, I did not see that. Okay, that changes a little bit. But yeah, this doesn't matter. So he is actually theoretically higher than game director. I don't think that matters a lot. Because he most likely is going to be the guy who's effectively doing this, President Wizards of the Coast, and, just kind of summarizing shit that's happening there. Kind of hard to tell, but most likely that's how it's going to play out.
Down on it saying, yeah, we don't care what you want and what you don't want. We're going to feed you the slop and you're going to take it. And as I was referencing earlier, nepotism in gaming is a major issue these days. And with DEI being under such a microscope of so many gamers, it's taken on a life of its own. Upon further research, Skeleton Key is led by the former BioWare Austin boss, Christian Daly, who has described its first project as a AAA title focused on immersive gameplay and unique storytelling. Hopefully no bars
Unique storytelling sounds like a red flag, though.
are involved with this, but I wouldn't hold my breath. I can't help but connect the obvious dots behind the scenes here and say, something smells very suspicious on what's happening. The studio's direction could be in serious jeopardy after Bush is now involved, considering his track record of prioritizing activism over any kind of quality gameplay design.
And if you're wondering about that and you don't know anything about Dragon Age Railguard, one of the first things in the game that you can choose, well, that you're forced to choose because there's literally no way around this, is to establish your trans identity. And I'm not kidding about that. The medieval fucking fantasy game. Congratulations, you're now establishing your trans identity, buckaroo. It is as sad and as pathetic as you think. Anyway, that was Smash JT, 10 out of 10. And yeah, I mean, this is so bad for Magic, for Wizards of the Coast in general, but not that they give a shit, honestly. So, yeah. Let's see how this ends, I guess.